It's not muscles. This is what makes a man truly strong after 70. What makes a man truly strong after 70 isn't muscle, and most of us don't even realize it. I used to believe that to be a strong man, I had to keep these hands from trembling and these legs from weakening. But then, at age 72, after a mild stroke, I came to understand something. There are things that make me far stronger than muscles ever could, and that very thing is what saved me from loneliness, from falling apart, and from feeling like a burden to my own family. Dear friend, if you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, and you've started to notice your body doesn't feel the same, your memory sometimes fades, and even you feel a little lost now and then this video is for you. Because I'm not here to talk about six-pack abs after 70. I'm not talking about high-protein diets or hitting the gym 5 times a week. What I want to share with you are the 6 traits that make a man truly strong after age 70. And believe me, none of them are about biceps or walking speed. They're about something deeper, something that makes people remember you, even after you're gone. In the first part, I'll tell the story of a man who always felt the need to stay in control until he learned one simple truth. True strength is knowing when to let go. And that's just the beginning of redefining what it means to be strong in our later years. If you stay with me through the end of this video, you'll understand why being strong isn't always about how far you can go, but about knowing when to pause and look deeply within. If you've ever questioned your worth after 70, hit that subscribe button. Because here, I don't just talk about health, I talk about how to truly live fully and meaningfully after 70. And I believe that after this video, you just might look at yourself and the years ahead with a whole new light. Part 1, letting go. The strength in not holding on. I used to think that a strong man was someone who never backed down. Now I see it differently. Sometimes the strongest man is the one who knows when to stop. There was a time when I insisted everything had to go my way. If my wife cooked a new dish, I'd frown and say, I'm not used to this. If my child wanted to move houses, I'd argue, we're already comfortable here, why move? I believed that sticking to my opinions, standing firm, keeping control, that was what made a real man. But then, at 71, I had a serious argument with my youngest son, just because he bought an electric car without asking me. He didn't call for a whole week. No texts either. We only lived 20 minutes apart, but it felt like a whole state away. I kept grumbling, he's disrespectful, ungrateful. But every night I felt empty inside. Then my wife said something that stopped me in my tracks. You're great at holding on to your opinions, but can you still hold on to your son? I went silent. I started to reflect, not just on that argument, but on how I'd lived for years. And I realized I wasn't being strong. I was afraid of being left behind, afraid of not being needed, afraid of losing the role of head of the family I'd carried for so long. But the truth is, you don't have to hold on to everything to hold on to your worth. Sometimes it's when you let go that others finally feel safe to come closer. I texted my son just one line I was wrong. If you like the electric car, that's what matters. I'd love to take a ride with you. He called back right away. His voice cracked. I was just afraid you'd stay angry forever. I didn't know how to talk to you. That day, I didn't just ride in an electric car for the first time. I took a ride past my own outdated pride. From then on, I started building a new kind of strength, not gripping tighter, but loosening my hold, not speaking louder, but listening first. And I've come to see the strength of a man after 70 isn't in how many arguments he wins. It's in knowing what truly matters and letting go of the little things to hold on to that. What about you? Is there something you've been holding on to too tightly that's slowly building a wall between you and the people you love? If this touched something in you, share a moment when you chose to let go in the comments below. Because sometimes the smallest stories are what give someone else the courage to change. And if you believe like I do, that there's still so much worth living for after 70, hit that subscribe button. Together, we'll keep searching for the kind of strength that doesn't lie in our hands, but deep within the heart of a man who's lived. Part 2, the courage to be vulnerable. The strength of being honest with yourself. There's a kind of strength I never knew existed. It's not holding a hammer to fix the roof. It's not pushing through back pain. And it's definitely not pretending everything's fine, when inside there are emotions I've never even named. It's the kind of strength that comes from allowing yourself to be vulnerable. For most of my life, I tried to appear strong. As a husband, a father, a provider, I believed I had to always have the answers, be the comforter, the rock. Even on sleepless nights worrying about my children, even when I felt so exhausted I didn't want to get out of bed, I still forced a smile and said, "I'm fine." But one day, sometime after I turned 70, I was sitting alone in a doctor's office when he gently said, "You're showing signs of prolonged anxiety, possibly related to mild depression." I laughed it off. I served in the military, survived financial crashes. I'm not weak enough to worry about emotions. The doctor, also an older man, just looked at me for a moment, then asked, "Have you ever allowed yourself to be sad?" That question, simple as it sounded, left me speechless. There I was, a 72-year-old man, sitting in silence, unable to respond. Not because of illness, but because I had never once let myself be vulnerable. Not because I lacked emotion, but because I was afraid. Afraid of being seen as weak, afraid of losing my image, afraid that others would no longer see me as strong. But I was wrong. When I finally told my children, "I miss your mother so much. Sometimes I feel unbearably lonely," they didn't pity me like I feared. They hugged me. When I told my friends I've been seeing a therapist every month, and it's helping, no one laughed. In fact, one of them said, "I've been thinking about that too." Thanks for saying it. That's when I understood real strength doesn't come from holding it all in. It comes from being honest with yourself, that some sadness can't be buried, that some fears won't just go away on their own, and only when you can name them can you move through them. Now I allow myself to be vulnerable. Not always, but when I need to, I sit down, breathe deeply, and speak honestly. I'm feeling sad. I need someone to listen. I'm not okay right now, but I will be. And strangely enough, in those moments of weakness, I feel stronger than ever. Because I no longer have to hide, no longer have to pretend. I'm simply me. And that's enough. What about you? How long has it been since you last spoke, honestly, even with yourself? If that question brings something up for you, I invite you to share, even just a line, in the comments below. Who knows? That might be your first step toward a deeper kind of strength. And if you believe that even after 70, emotions still deserve to be honored in a man's life, hit the subscribe button. because we've got more real conversations ahead, not to prove anything, but to live honestly. Part 3. Keeping your word. The quiet strength of being trustworthy. There's a kind of strength that makes no noise. You can't see it in someone's muscles. You can't measure it in miles walked or reps at the gym. It doesn't draw attention at a party, but it earns someone's trust for life. It's the strength of a man who keeps his word. When I was younger, I thought strength was doing big things, buying a house, protecting the family, being in charge at work. But after turning 70, I realized sometimes the hardest things to keep are the smallest. One time, my 6-year-old grandson asked me to help him build a tent in the backyard. I said yes, promised we'd do it after lunch. But then a friend called inviting me out for coffee, and I told the boy, let's do it tomorrow. Grandpa's busy today. He just nodded, didn't look upset, didn't cry, but his eyes, I can't forget that look. Not angry, not sad, just disappointed. I thought I'd only broken a small promise. But later that night, while he was on the phone with his parents, I overheard him whisper, "But Grandpa promised." That sentence kept echoing in my mind. I had broken a promise that seemed small to me, but to a child, it meant the world. And I realized the older we get, the more weight our words carry. Not because we speak louder, but because others look to us for stability and trust, starts with the smallest kept promises. Since that day, I made a rule for myself: speak less. But if I say it, I follow through. If I promise to call, I call. If I agree to go with my wife to the doctor, I show up on time. If I say I'll listen, I put down the phone, turn off the TV, and really listen. The more I did that, the more peaceful I felt inside. Not because I did something grand, but because I knew I wasn't the kind of man who spoke empty words anymore. And slowly, I began to hear my loved ones speak to me with a different tone. Dad always does what he says. Grandpa doesn't say much, but he means it. I've never felt prouder of myself in that way, not proud of what I've achieved, but proud of what I didn't fail to do when I gave my word. Maybe that's what men over 70 need most to be trusted, not for our past titles, but for who we are now. And that trust, it's built one kept promise at a time. What about you? Is there someone still waiting for a promise you once forgot? Is there something you meant to follow through on, but life got in the way? If so, start again. Just one small promise kept can heal a relationship, restore trust, and even rebuild a self-respect that's been lost along the way. If this message stirs something in you, share it with me, just a line. And if you want to keep walking this quiet but meaningful path of strength, hit subscribe. There's more we haven't said, but it's worth living one truth at a time. Part 4. The Power of Listening Strength, without needing to win. When I was younger, I loved to talk. In meetings, at the dinner table, in every conversation, I always wanted to be the one with the final word. I believed a strong man was someone who spoke last. But after 70, I discovered something different. There's a kind of strength in staying silent at the right moment. That realization came to me in the most unexpected way. One evening, my daughter, now in her 40s, came home for dinner. She started sharing how she wanted to leave her banking job and open a small coffee shop. She spoke about dreams, about passion, about wanting to finally do something that truly felt like her own. As soon as she finished, my first reaction was, "That's not a good idea. Why leave a stable job?" And just like that, I did what I'd always done, interrupted halfway. spoke in my fatherly tone, and listed out all the risks. She fell silent. Then she said quietly, "Dad, I'm not looking for advice today. I just wanted you to listen." I went quiet. I looked at my daughter, now a mother of two. But for a moment I saw the little girl she once was, just wanting to be trusted. And it hit me I wasn't really listening. I was just waiting for my turn to speak. That night I made a promise to myself, one that hasn't been easy to learn to listen without interrupting. Not fixing, not correcting, not jumping in too soon, just listening with presence and respect. At first it was tough. Every time someone spoke, I'd already have a response forming in my head. But I practiced breathing. I practiced keeping my mouth shut. I practiced just being still. And something amazing happened. When I stopped talking, others opened up more. When I truly listened, people felt more loved. Now my grandson prefers to tell me his stories instead of his parents. My son comes to me for advice more often, not because I'm wiser, but because I no longer make him feel judged. Even my wife, after more than 40 years together, said to me, "You're finally listening. Talking to you feels easier now." I used to think there wasn't much left to prove after 70. Now I realize because I don't need to prove anything anymore, I'm finally able to listen. Because listening isn't weakness. Listening is an intentional choice to give someone else the space to be fully themselves. And that, to me, is the quietest and most profound strength of a seasoned man, not needing to speak, to have value, but listening deeply enough so others feel they have value. What about you? When your loved ones talk to you, do they feel truly heard? Maybe it only takes one small change, one slower breath, one pause before responding to turn a quiet conversation into something deeply meaningful. If this reminds you of a moment in your own life, I invite you to share it, just a few words. And if learning to listen again, no matter your age, is something you want for yourself, hit subscribe. Because we can still become better husbands, more understanding fathers, and closer grandfathers, whether we're 75 or 85. Part 5, Living with Integrity, the Strength of Lasting Personal Values. There's something I came to realize after turning 70. True strength no longer lies in the achievements you rack up in life, but in the values you leave behind. Not on paper, but in people's memories. I once had a neighbor, Mr. Paul, a few years older than me. He wasn't wealthy. He didn't hold impressive degrees. But every morning he would walk his dog past each house, checking in on everyone. When someone lost their wife, he brought flowers. When someone got sick, he made soup and dropped it off. In the winter, he shoveled snow for the elderly lady next door, even though his own knees were aching from arthritis. When he passed, the church was packed with people paying their respects. No one spoke of his money or status. They spoke of his kindness, his presence, the way he made them feel seen and valued. And as I listened to those words, I found myself wondering, if I were to leave tomorrow, what would people carry in their hearts about me? I started reflecting on my life, not to dwell in regret, but to realign the way I want to live for the time I have left. I stopped engaging in petty arguments. I called up an old friend I'd fallen out with over business. I wrote a handwritten letter apologizing to a cousin for something I said years ago. Not because I'm afraid of dying, but because I want to live the right way. Living with integrity isn't something lofty or grand. It simply means living in a way that your grandchildren can learn something from you, that your friends feel comforted just by thinking of you, that your neighbors feel reassured knowing someone like you still exists. That kind of value isn't found in diplomas or bank statements. It's in the choices we make each day to be selfish or kind, petty or generous, indifferent or grateful. And I truly believe after 70, living with integrity is how we keep our strength alive from the inside out. You don't need to do anything big. Just keep your honesty intact. Don't let circumstances harden your heart. Keep owning up to your mistakes. Keep helping. Keep keeping your word. That's the spine, the spiritual backbone that helps a man stand tall in the stormy years of old age. If you're listening to this and feel a quiet tug in your heart, it might mean there's a value within you that's been waiting to be lived out more fully. Don't wait. Start living it today. If you've ever met a man who lived with true integrity and left a deep impression on you, share that story in the comments. And if you believe that after 70, we no longer live to impress, but to pass on something meaningful, hit subscribe. Because what we leave behind for the world sometimes begins with one honest thought, at just the right time. Part 6. Still knowing how to smile. The strength of a man without bitterness. I've met many older men physically strong, sharp with words rich in life experience, yet something about them made others hesitant to get close. It wasn't that they were unkind, but in their eyes there was a heaviness, bitterness. Some held a grudge against their wives for something said 40 years ago. Some never forgave their children for not following in their footsteps. Others had no friends left because every person in their life had once let them down. And strangely, they didn't realize the more they clung to old wounds, the lonelier they became. And in that loneliness, they told themselves, "I'm like this because people treated me badly." But is that really the whole story? I used to be like that. I thought I had to hold on to memories, to pain, and to people I felt were wrong, just to prove I was right. I stayed silent at the dinner table over past grievances. I grew cold toward friends who didn't get me. I stopped smiling, not because I had no reason to be happy, but because I was afraid that if I smiled, I'd lose my power. I'd lose the right to be upset. I'd lose the privilege of feeling hurt. But one evening, I saw my wife, who had lived with me for 45 years, smile as our grandchild told a silly story. She laughed genuinely, not because the story was amazing, but because she still knew how to smile. Even though I had often made her upset, even though her health was fading, even though our kids weren't always around, she still kept her smile. That night I looked in the mirror and asked myself, why do I take everything so seriously? I'm living in some of the most precious years of my life. So why am I still carrying the weight of the past? And I decided I would relearn how to smile. Not a fake smile, but a smile that comes from letting go, from feeling lighter, from no longer needing to prove anything. These days, I don't avoid the past, but I no longer let it define me. When my son shows up late, I smile and say, "This old man just got 15 bonus minutes to relax." "Thanks, son." When my wife forgets something, I tease her gently and we both laugh. When a friend comes by, I pour tea and tell stories, as if the tension from years ago never existed. I've realized the older a man gets, the more valuable his smile becomes. It shows that he has weathered life's storms without letting them scar his heart. that he's wise enough to know sometimes we forgive not because the other person deserves it, but because we need peace. So if you're still holding on to something that keeps your heart cold, try smiling. Not to erase the past, but to start living more lightly right now. If someone once hurt you and you've learned how to forgive them, share your story in the comments. You might be the reason another man finds the courage to let go. And if you believe that after 70, the greatest strength is keeping a warm heart and eyes that still know how to smile, hit subscribe. Because this journey of living, lighter living, better, sometimes begins with one honest, heartfelt smile. Closing. Strength isn't in your hands, but in how you choose to live. These 6 things may seem simple. They don't require muscle or stamina, but they demand a deeper kind of strength, the kind that only comes when you've lived long enough, deep enough, and true enough. If you're in your 60s, 70s, or even 80s, and you've ever questioned yourself, if you've ever wondered, am I still strong? Then I want you to remember this. Being strong doesn't mean you never get hurt. It means you keep going with kindness, with steadiness, and without abandoning yourself. Yes, our bodies may grow older, but the soul, when nurtured the right way, can grow stronger with every passing year. If something I shared today touched a place inside you, leave a few words in the comments. I'd truly love to hear real stories from real people. And if you'd like to keep walking this journey with me, a man still learning how to live more fully each day, hit that subscribe button. Because I believe aging isn't the end. It's the most profound chapter in the journey of becoming a man who truly lives with meaning.